Thanks, everyone. We now get to know each other better. So I welcome Sravanthi for the first session. She's the Senior Director, Site Head, Hyderabad Operations at S&P Global. Right? She comes with a 22-year experience, and her experience lies mainly, if I could bucket them, as data analysts would, right, in building high-performance teams and definitely building cutting-edge products, right? So I'm looking forward to hearing more from her. She's a proud alum of NYU and ISB, something that we share, and looking forward to hearing from you. I'll leave the floor.
Okay. Thank you so much, Harika. All right. I actually wanted to be very open conversation. I started my career in technology, so I'm very passionate about it. The last 20 of the 22 years, 20 has been in tech, pure tech, as a developer, as a manager, or managing development teams, and then the products. Moving into now the data world, where I was on the other side complaining about why are these guys, data teams complaining, about little bugs or time, if you know what I mean. They would come back. For us, it's all about time and speed and quality. So they would go measure time in milliseconds. And I was like, millisecond, you won't even realize, by the time it refreshes, right? You blink of, not even a blink of a second. But they would not agree from that stage. But then they would count and say times 5,000 people, and that's like a day or something, like depending on if we introduce a bug. From that stage, so now I'm on this side of the team where I'm representing data. I'm site lead, but also take care of a lot of our internal programs. So I can see the team's concerns now, why they ask for that. I also count our hours, productivity now, so I go complain to the tech teams that it is important for us to fix that bug because it counts. Yeah, of those 22 years, S&P, if you guys know, it's a data company, technology-driven data company, where speed and quality is important, and that's where we provide our essential intelligence to our clients, right? It's very important. There are scenarios where even if a little thing goes bad, we get a lot of complaints, especially during the earnings season. I also think because of that, we've stayed afloat for the last 150 years, right? Or plus, 150 plus years. I think it started out as a data company, crunching the numbers, doing it as a newsletters or even printed stuff, using the railroads to transport, to where we are now. I think over the last 150 years, it went through a lot of transformation. Now we are going through another transformation where, whatever we used to take, we have about 5,000 plus. I think we are close to 6,000 analysts who just crunch the numbers every day. And we are trying to automate a lot, not to remove people, of course. We want to expand our data sets. There's a lot coming up, right? There's a lot of emerging markets. There's quite a bit to be done. Private markets is huge. I know everybody wants to invest, not just the public markets, but we want to see those little ones which will become, next big thing that we all want. Investors are looking to invest, and they need that data, and that's a big market, right? That's where we are trying to see. We automate the regular stuff, and then we go into these new markets where people can do a lot of research and enhance our products. Right now, if you see, everything goes into the, a lot of customers, when they look at us, they ask us, do you have India data? So far, we've been very, very focused on US markets, but now people ask for India markets, China, you name it, every country, in addition to US, of course. Having said that, I think, when we look at the quality side, there is an aspect, about I would say actually 2015 is when we bought over a company called SNL. They had this practice of giving $50 to the clients if they found a bug in the data on our platforms. So when we acquired them, S&P said, what the hell, we'll also adopt it, right? We'll take the challenge, we'll see where, we've budgeted more money, but that actually changed a lot of our mindsets. People were like, how can you find, it actually impacted in both sides, both technology and data folks. Like, how can you find fault in my data is that one aspect. And then tech guys would go, that's like if you see a data coming in late, like the earnings statement went out, and if it didn't reflect, they would immediately call and say your data is wrong. But then, that actually inspired a lot of people to innovate and show how our data is going up, right? The quality aspect. We did pay initially a lot, but over the years, I think right now we are a lot less. We allocate budget, but every year on year it gets reduced 5%, 10%. Now we are targeting every year. Next year we'll get 5% less money to give. So that means there's a lot of pressure to improve the quality. So that actually established a big quality component in whatever we do. You're looking, before we release, there's lot of effort that goes into ensuring the data is delivered quality deliveries, including the technology guys, right? There's a big tech component. When they're building, they have the, yeah, it is evolving. If you do we have any QA folks in here? QA, quality engineers? I know your lives are changing a lot. I've seen, yesterday we had an ISB event, and because of the Gen AI, the topic was Gen AI, and we left it very broad, and how the algorithms and the new frameworks are coming up, and there were a lot of QAs who came up and said, how do I measure quality, right? Because you do the, one time it comes as one result, and then the other time. Both are correct, but it's not the exact same thing when you use Gen AI. So they were asking a lot of questions. How is my job evolving? How do I look at quality engineering as a process? But I think a lot, even within us, in our organization, we've evolved that quite a bit. The definition has changed, but quality is basic, foundational stuff. And the way we are looking, then we have layers of quality check, right? There was a time, I'll go back into the history, when I joined here in the data world here, not when I was building tools for data, every time a client complained, we would put a check on top, to a point where we had like 20,000 checks for ridiculous thing. Client comes back with a question, that becomes a check. We were not thinking how it is impacting the performance, right? And eventually then we realized, oh, these 25,000 checks were causing only a percentage of cases these are all edge cases, but then you're implementing it for regular, every use case would go through. So that's again another transformation that we looked at and said, okay, we don't have to check everything. As long as we are good with 80%, and then we do sample checks, and that sample has evolved over years, right? That team has looked at frameworks and said, what is it that we are most passionate about, right? We don't want, when S&P Global does its annual report, we don't want our stuff to go late. We want it to go right away. Or even when there are companies which people look for. So we did a lot of analysis and said, quality is very important, but where do we draw the line, right? That's where the governance part came in. And then we have this QA quality team in technology and also in data. They look at all these quality checks, what is important, and then they put some frameworks and said, what is the right amount of sample that we should take? And how we're looking at even when we publish, when we categorize saying clients, we pay 50 $50 for if you catch something, but we have started saying, okay, these are the most important parts, right? You don't want to make mistakes in the fundamentals, which is your income statement, balance sheet. But there are some things that nobody cares for. Like, what is the sales of, I'm just taking a random example, but iPhone in Taiwan or like South Africa, sorry. South Africa and Johannesburg, you can go up till that level, but I don't want to care for that data quality because nobody, like when you look at the analytics, the number of hits is like 1% versus when you look at iPhone sales, that's where the 100% hit, 99% of the hits are. So we started reviewing, looking at quality in different ways, and then we prepared some frameworks which actually helped us save costs, even when we are looking. So we are emphasizing where people are looking at. That's where the data analytics came in. Yeah, that's how the company, I feel the company is afloat for the last 150 years because they've been looking at how quality is important. I think that's what end of the day everyone cares, right? I don't want to go buy phone or something which works for a day. So I think that's quality is really, really important. And I know data has changed with all the Yesterday, one more thing that I learned or picked up is, there's so many algorithms out there. Which one should I use, or there's so many emerging technologies. What should I learn, or should I be looking at this algorithm? Should I be looking at Web 3.0 in a different way? Or, there were a lot of questions on which technology to pick. And then the key point that came out was, don't look at the technologies, look at the problems. Once you understand your problem, the solution can be anything. You can build on it, right? So understanding the problem is the key. And then once you understand, you create the solutions, and then the quality, of course, comes into picture. That's a big, big thing. Yeah, I don't know what else. Yes.
So I think I gleaned some insights from what you were talking about. Yeah, okay. So when you talked about a lot of analysts being data crunchers, right? I think one of the challenges that we've seen is that those who actually are crunching the data are not necessarily the domain subject matter experts, right? I don't know if that's the case. But then my question is around, how do you enable them? How do you empower them so that they are able to ensure quality? Because true quality is only when you truly understand the data. It's not just about crunching the numbers, right? So how is it in your experience, in your teams, how have you enabled them?
So we have both cases, right? We recently celebrated 30 years in operations in Hyderabad. I have 20 plus year employees who are data experts. When we hired initially, when we started operations here, we were looking at data, like data teams, like people who understand commerce background is what we were picking up. They understand data to the core. They feel threatened right now, if I may say, right? They're like, oh my God, there's so much of technology is coming up, will I lose my job? The one thing that we keep telling them is we need people like you who understand the data. And then what we are subtly or trying to introduce is we have our own internal learning platforms where people are learning. We just expose them, right? We do a quick 2-minute demo. And that is so powerful. Like in the town hall today, we did a demo of low code, no code, which is nothing major, right? One of the EOS team, which is our secretarial, office managers. That person did an app which basically just takes the, if I have a request, I need a meeting, I just email him, and it goes into mailbox, and it just creates a task for somebody to pick up. Any category of task, right? It's just so automated. It's just based on the Power BI apps, and he just built that just for his productivity, right? Nothing, nobody, he was not waiting for any technologist to come and help him build that tool. He just, the necessity. What we are trying to do is showcase such inspiring stories where people are just building little things, and just making a difference. There was another one I was doing, we do an annual survey of employees, right? People just write a lot of comments. What I've done is I just said, I looked at everything. We have an internal Gen AI. It's basically built on top of the 3.5 version. So I just uploaded the documents, all the feedback, came up with certain themes and said, this is how you summarize. Did a little demo in our leadership and said, in your team, these are the 5 things people are talking about. And that actually inspired someone in the team to go back and say, oh, why am I reading this 100-page annual report? I can just upload it, and it throws me a description. Because we look at the annual reports and say, this is a short description of the company, this is a long description of the company. Basically, short description is about 100 words or 200 words, which says, okay, Google has blah, 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 things to do, services, and it's just quick description. In the long description, it says these are its competitors, these are these are the segments it operates in. But that, I know this, that's something that they picked up and built a little tool out of it. Earlier, we had only for the public companies, even that, only the barely 6,000 companies we had data for, that long description. Now they looked at it and said they started building POCs around it, and now we're expanding the coverage to all public companies. Whether it's needed, and we'll have to evaluate the cost of it. Obviously, your technologies probably know, it is okay. So far, in the 100 years or last 50 years, nobody asked us for the long description for every company. We're just doing it, but that also means there is a cost. The point is, people loved it, right? They were experimenting. We didn't ask them to do it. We were just showcasing some demos, and they picked up and started learning. That's the empowerment. We don't have to tell people to change and say, go read and let's do something. By showing these inspiring stories, we were able to ease a little bit, not the whole thing. I think all of us are scared in our own ways, but I think it just helps to show inspiring stories and say, this is how you can learn and adapt to the changing times. Use it to your advantage, right? That's the thing that I wanted to.
Got it. Thanks. I think you subtly answered the question of how Gen AI is changing the landscape in general, right? But is there some data product that you would like to talk about where you've used some of the latest AI ML methodologies or models, right? Which has basically transformed the way we've traditionally worked with data. And it could be at any stage of the data lifecycle, right? Not necessarily governance, not necessarily quality, but anything that you would like to talk about.
Okay, I see Gen AI, or actually, this is what I've been learning attending the conferences and all. I put it in 2 ways. Is it productivity gain for me, right, individually? What can I do to all the examples that I gave earlier where it helps me to be more productive? Very internal focused, and there's the revenue generating side of it, right? That's where we are trying to experiment, see what actually customers want to pay. We are still, anything that we do, it's coming down to, we are like, oh wow, this is great. But when we start doing it, it becomes a productivity thing. We are still in the process. There are some things that we think people would love to pay for it. We'll have to see when it comes out. But it's like, for example, I don't know if I can say it, but I'll say it. In our commodity markets, we do benchmarks for commodity markets. So every day there's a market on close. People say, I bought this for this, and we generate headlines and push it out. The turnaround time is in milliseconds. We're trying to see how fast or we can make the sentences can go wrong. It's because it's manual. As in it's automated, but it's also a little bit manual. So the point is, it can enhance it, right? We are just trying. There's a lot of projects within our company where they're trying to see how we can make revenue-generating products. It's still in progress. We haven't cracked it, but if you guys did, definitely all ears to listen and pick up ideas.
Can I ask you one last question?
Yes.
Before I move to the next? So I think the example you gave about the data teams and the tech teams, right? And they constantly had, did you get the quality right or did I get the quality right? I think that's very commonplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because you've built high-performing teams in your organizations, I was just curious, how is it that you get, especially the product and the tech teams especially, right, to collaborate? Because as you can see, there's stake on both sides of the table. What is it that worked for them, whether it is a process, whether it is a tool, or it could be, just a mechanism or a culture?
Over the years, one thing I've seen is when you understand the big picture, where it all fits in, right? And then people start feeling, oh, that's what I'm doing. It's not the little task that I'm doing, but when you give the big picture, I've seen that help me. While I was really young in my career, one of the managers did that to me regularly. He said, you're not doing this task, but you're actually building this, which is how clients use it. And then that helps all of us to come together. Or at least I was like, oh my God, I'm doing such a big thing, right? While I was just out of college, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was doing such an important thing where if I do something wrong, he'll lose $1 million, right? That's where he actually gave a big view. And what I try to understand, and then whatever I can, I'll pass it on to the teams where, how much ever big picture we can share. That just, I think, automatically energizes everyone. It's the open conversations that helps. And being very transparent, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's amazing to see all our allies. I thought I'm talking to women in technology, but good to see some of the male colleagues here, our best allies and promoters. Thank you.
Thank you.